Hey, what is going on, everyone? It's me, Mr. Mario, and welcome back to another episode of Mario's Minute. For those who don't know, this here is my second podcast I do here. My main podcast is Mod Chat, in which I come on and I talk about things that I find new, interesting, cool in the world of video game modding and video game console modding. It is a bit more edited. It is not scripted, I would say, but it is typically the type of podcast where, there's a little bit more structure going on. But this is not that. This here is Mario's Minute, like I said, my second podcast where I come on here and I talk to you all about whatever the hell I want to. Sometimes I have a guest on, sometimes I don't. This is going to be a guestless episode because, you know what, with the holidays and everything, I'm sorry, maybe it sounds like an excuse, maybe it sounds like some cope, I don't know. But like, with the holidays, everything going on and just schedules, I'm like, you know what, it just works better if I could just like sit my butt down and record for a little bit and get one of these episodes out here, as opposed to, coordinating and getting that sorted when everyone is busy right now in December, especially, hey, I'm included in that as well too. So it happens. Either way, it is a podcast, like I said, where I come on here, talk about whatever the hell I want to. Sometimes I have a guest on, sometimes I don't. And it is available in two forms. First of all, it is available in a visual form here on the Mr. Mario 2011 YouTube, Rumble, and Odyssey channels. And since this is a podcast, you can take it around and listen to it wherever the hell you want to in an audio-only form like an actual podcast. Simply look up Mario's Minute on your favorite podcasting app, host, provider, or platform, and you should hopefully be able to find it. I know it's not available on all of them, but it is available on most of them. Either way, what are we going to be talking about this episode here? Well, from the title, you can kind of maybe guess that there's going to be a little bit of ranting, a little bit of doom and gloom, and I apologize about that, but this is just my show where I kind of want to, as I've said a few times, talk about wherever the hell I want to, and usually it's just what's on my mind, what might be exciting me, what might be annoying me, what might be worrying me, and try not to do the worrying stuff as much on here, just because, hey, look, if it's my problem, I kind of want to deal with that. Don't really want to, impart it to all the audience unless it really needs to be out there, but that's just how this goes here. So what I'm trying to say and what I'm trying to do is I'm going to do a little bit of a sandwich. I'm going to give some positive stuff, we're going to go into some doom, and then we're going to end on some positive notes. Does that work with everyone? Hopefully it does. Okay, cool. We'll just jump right into it here. So one of the things is, I'll say this, man, December is one of my favorite months. As busy as I end up being in Q4, and as much as the holidays are there, the main ones you really hit all three there are Halloween, Thanksgiving, and then Christmas. Christmas usually the bigger one around where I'm at here and even in my life as well too. But of course, there's many other holidays that are celebrated around Christmas time as well too. So it's not just limited to that. However, I end up going to a white elephant gift exchange, so I kind of want to share a little bit of my story on that. Now, for those who do not know, this is essentially how white elephant works, and if I'm butchering the rules a little bit, my apologies here. I've only done white elephant twice. Typically, it's not supposed to be anything that is super expensive, and if you want a really great visual as to how white elephant works, and even how it can go really bad, just watch the episode of The Office US, where they end up doing a white elephant gift exchange. And one of the references I've been told about other ones, which either if you hear it, it's funny, or if you tell someone, it makes people laugh, is you don't want to have an instant like with the iPod video. If you watch that episode of The Office, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. However, essentially what happens is you'll have a group of people come about. They can be friends, co-workers, family, a mix of everything, even strangers as well too, just coming together for some kind of common cause, which is essentially what we had done here this time around. My girlfriend had found out about an event. She ended up going to this. I brought a gift. She brought a gift. And it was a old tech exchange type setup, and it was cool. It was really cool. I enjoyed it. I was like, nerdy enough there to enjoy it. She thought I would enjoy it as well too, but it was a really awesome experience overall. Getting back to the actual rules of it though, you put all these people in a room, and then the way we did it is we kind of numbered off ourselves to see which person would go, and we were able to do about 3 rounds of it. And essentially what happens is, let's say I go up and I get a gift, right? So I have to go get a gift, I pick one, I bring it, and then I have to open it in front of everyone. And then everyone gets to see what the gift is. Then the next person can either get a gift or they can steal. So in this case, let's say they like my gift, they could choose to steal. So then if they end up stealing my gift, then I have to go up and I end up getting another gift, and then I, open it up and everything. After that, it's going to go to not the second person, but then the third person, and they can choose again if they want to steal any presents on the table or if they want to pick a present from the cache of presents. And then at the end, what ends up happening is the last person that ends up going, they can either choose to steal or they can choose to get the last gift there. And really it kind of ends with them. If they just decide to, get the last gift and say they're good, the game is over. If they decide to steal, then that, opens up even more stuff, because then the person they stole from can get that last gift. And then when they get, or they can even steal again. And you see how it can just get a little bit chaotic. It's one of those games where, like many of these games, it's a little bit odd to explain, but once you actually sit your butt down with other people and start playing it, it ends up making sense. I will say the first time I ever played it, I ended up, typically there's limitations on this as well too. That is why, again, you want to avoid the iPod video scenario. But I believe we had a $5 limit on gifts. So typically it's something like that, and it allows you to flex some creativity. Well, I end up going to, this is years ago, I end up going to Five Below. I end up getting a amiibo there, and I ended up doing something I thought was pretty great, right? I ended up just getting an old Amazon box, like it was already beat up, it was kind of ripped apart and stuff, and I just put the amiibo in there, and I taped it real quick, and I just brought it with me. I had, without a doubt, the ugliest looking present, and I could tell because my present was one of the last ones, or if not the last one, that was grabbed. But it was funny because when the person ended up opening it up, the person who ended up opening it, they didn't really care about amiibos, but they were surprised. Everybody else was like, whoa, wait, what is that? What? Whoa, like everyone freaked out about it. Even some people were asking, they're like, okay, hey, hold on, that's more than $5. I'm like, no, it's not. No, it's not. They're like, are you sure? I thought those weren't for more than $5. I'm like, they typically do. And then that amiibo ended up getting stolen as well too. Stolen through the game itself, not stolen in a nefarious way. But yeah, that's that was at least my little claim to fame there, that I did that on purpose. I came through with the ugliest gift, and I had debatably one of the best ones at that whole exchange there. So what ended up happening with this one, the theme was just bringing in old tech. And there was one person who, man, the guy who started it, he was really trying to spring clean, right? He ended up bringing a ton of gifts because the idea was, you want to bring at least one, but it was a whole event where we went, we ended up meeting up with people, ate some food, then we ended up doing the gift exchange. And the two gifts that my girlfriend and I brought, I ended up just going into my cache of old tech and things that I'm not using. And I didn't want to, just grab like junk, but I want to bring something usable, something kind of old, and also just something that it could be usable and valuable to someone there, but it's also something that I'm not going to be using. And two of the things that I ended up bringing, or I guess with the both of us, she ended up wrapping them, but I picked the gifts. One of them was a USB, like it was a SATA to USB 3.0 hard drive adapter. There was nothing wrong with it. It's just I'd had it for so many years, and I never even took it out of the box. So I said, you know what? Someone else could use this. Another one was actually a PC motherboard. It was a small form factor PC motherboard. I don't really build small PCs like that. The motherboard was fine. It was actually still in the box. I can't even remember how I got the damn thing. I'm going to be honest with you. But because it doesn't have the satisfactions for, it doesn't satisfy the needs for Windows 11, which I know that's a whole controversial thing, but because it doesn't satisfy those, and I'd been looking to build a Windows 11 based PC for a family member, I just wasn't going to be using it. Again, I don't remember how I got the motherboard. I wasn't going to be using it really in the near future. I have other computers that I could use if I'm wanting to use an older operating system or Linux or something else, so it was fine. So I ended up bringing that as well too. The one guy who brought in all the old junk, he ended up, and I say that lovingly, but he ended up getting both of our presents, because I think he ended up getting the first one, and even when he got it was the drive adapter, he was excited about it. He was like, this isn't old. Hold on, this isn't old. This isn't junk. So I think from that, he ended up getting our second present because he saw the ones we brought in, and he was kind of like, I was able to hit with this first one, let me do the second one, and he was excited. And even we had some jokes as well too. We had all the parts there, including the motherboard, or we could have just made a whole computer right there. The only thing we were missing was a case, and somebody brought up a good point saying, well, we have cardboard, so we could use that. Either way, When we ended up doing this, we played the game. We went around about 3 times. We had a good time with it. Now, the things that I ended up getting, one of them was a old PC game. It was like a little like box set type game. And I was like, oh, that's cool. And even the guy who he brought in, he's like, oh, you're going to like that. And I was like, this is awesome, but it's just, I'm not going to play it or really use it. So I'm looking to, hey, sell it here in the near future. The other thing I end up getting, though, I don't remember the first thing I end up getting, but I end up being able to swap it because I ended up stealing for one of my choices. I think it was, yeah, for one that, because I only end up going, I was late enough in it that I only end up going twice. So I don't remember the second one I got, but I end up stealing a DVD writer because there was one person who ended up, they pulled out a DVD burner. It was a USB one as well, too, and a decent portable one, or a decent external one, I should say. But I ended up seeing that, and I got excited because I'm like, hey, like, optical media, at least these drives and all that, they're starting to kind of be phased out. They've been phased out for a while, but as in, like, they're beginning to stop production really on these drives. I still use physical media often enough that having an extra disk drive on hand is always a benefit. Plus, I'd kind of been wanting, I have one external, this is just a personal thing, I have one external disk drive that I use, but it's a Blu-ray drive, and it's worked really well, but I'm like, it's kind of old. It was already refurbished when I got it. I don't want to use this one all the time. So if I could just use another one here only for CDs and DVDs, that's totally fine, and kind of like baby my Blu-ray one and use it a bit sparingly, that will be okay. I'm more than okay with that. So that's what I ended up coming away with. My girlfriend ended up getting a few things. One of them was she ended up getting these old adapters that like nobody wanted, nobody was using. It was explained to us, but it was essentially just I want to say they were like serial to not RJ45, but I want to say, is it like RJ15? I don't quite remember. It's the phone connection. That's it. Not Ethernet, but the actual phone connection. It was these really old like serial to phone connection adapters where you could really like wire up two old PCs like that. It was explained to us. It was cool, and we were just like, we're not going to be using this. It is not going to be used. The other thing she ended up getting was this John Wayne DVD box set, and then it was funny because she ended up getting that swapped out because there was a guy who was interested in it. He had ended up coming over, and he was like, hey, would you be interested in this here? And it was a CD or DVD or Blu-ray, but it was just a disc booklet, like an optical disc booklet, right? And she just traded it off, and I was like, you know what? I can use a disc booklet. That's fine. And even originally, she was going to be thinking of like, she got unnecessarily excited about the John Wayne DVDs. And when I say that, it was because when she opened it, the way she reacted, she was like, oh, John Wayne! And I started laughing. She's like, I don't even know why I said it like that. I'm tired, dude. I don't know why I said it. But, oh yeah, I can watch this with my family members. But then when the guy who was actually interested in them came over and was offering to trade, she was like, you know what? Yeah, that's totally fine. You can enjoy these here. So those were some of the things that we ended up getting. It was a fun time overall. And if you all are able to participate in some kind of exchange like that, always a fun time. Well, usually a fun time. Hopefully, the only 2 times I've played it, I've really enjoyed it. So it can get a little hectic as well, too, but it's fun. So now with that out of the way, I did want to talk about this here, which ended up being some pretty big news, and it's been unfortunate, because I feel like it's one of those things that once the news dropped, a lot of people looked at it at the surface, and it was like, oh, that's not good. But a lot of people also didn't realize how bad this was until more and more research was done, until more news was talked about, until there were more knowledgeable people, much more knowledgeable than myself, who are more familiar with the industry, were talking about it more. And that was with Micron exiting the consumer market. Now, for those who don't know, there's really like 3 companies that end up making like RAM chips and such. I'm mostly going to be focusing on RAM here, but it's going to be like RAM and flash storage, I believe, is in that as well. But for the most part, we're just going to focus on RAM. There's really only like 3 companies that make it, and one of them is Micron. And I think they took over a third of the market there. Just because there's three of them doesn't mean each of them is evenly divided into a third. However, they ended up taking like just over a third of the market, I want to say. And what happened with this announcement was they came out and they said, hey, we're going to be exiting the consumer market. They are going to be focusing their efforts on selling directly to AI-based companies because to use all these LLMs to run all these chatbots, to run all these AI-related services, they gobble up RAM. I haven't really talked much about AI on here because I don't have a ton of good stuff to say about it. I guess I'll just say that. And I try to keep stuff usually pretty chipper on here. I might delve into that a little bit here, but as someone who, I appreciate tech, I'm into it and such. It's just I've seen AI, I've seen it like really like grow and such there. I also just don't think it's like the best descriptor of it because everything is being labeled by AI when it's really actually like deep learning if you want to split that, if you're wanting to split hairs there. But really, there's been two ways of approaching AI at a base. It is either if we throw more resources at things, we'll make it bigger because bigger equals better, kind of like By and Large from WALL-E. So that's why you're seeing so much development over new data centers all over the place because a lot of these companies who run their AI instances, they're just throwing as many resources as they can at the wall. The other one, and that's like a lot of the common ones you see, like one of the most common ones is like OpenAI, what they do with ChatGPT. The other side of house is more companies that are focusing on, hey, we can just optimize the heck out of our models. And if we really just focus on optimizing them, we can do more with less, which is something like DeepSeek, for example. So when like the DeepSeek models, I think it was like R1, when that one ended up coming out and it ended up releasing, the big reason why it was such a huge deal was because you were able to work with this very large language learning model on hardware that paled in comparison to what other models were, what the standard was for other models. So I would say the DeepSeek approach, in my opinion, is the option that companies and developers should be going towards, but in reality, that's not really what's happening because the quicker and faster way in this AI arms race, the quicker way of doing it is just let's get as much money as possible, let's throw as much money into this here, and let's just build our infrastructure. And so part of this conversation is unavoidable with AI just because AI is the main reason why, if not the only reason why Micron is going towards there. Since AI and powering all this infrastructure, these data centers and all that, since a ton of RAM is needed for this, they've just found it more financially feasible for their business to sell directly to AI, like AI-based companies and such, as opposed to consumers. Now, for a lot of consumers, they might be thinking, okay, well, that doesn't really bug me that much. Like, I don't really build computers that often. I don't really upgrade what I have. And unfortunately, that is wrong. It does affect anybody who really uses any type of technology. Because when we're talking about consumers, we are talking about Micron not just selling sticks of RAM, or even like little like blocks of RAM, if you're going to be soldering them in directly, or if you're going to be getting a few sticks of RAM for your desktop or your laptop, what have you. No. Unfortunately, this ends up going across just consumer devices as a whole. So for example, Sony needs to produce the PS5 and the PS5 Pro, and they need RAM in there, so Micron can sell to Sony. Not anymore. Same with the Xbox. Like Microsoft, they're wanting to put RAM in the Xbox Series S and Series X. They used to be able to buy their RAM from Micron, not anymore. Any smartphone that you have, whether you have an Apple, whether you have an Android, it does not matter what it is, it has RAM in there. Those companies who are manufacturing them, they can't get them from Micron anymore. So not only we're dealing with, we end up seeing this like just before, where when there was much more of a ramp up, and it was only a month ago, man, this is only 1 month ago, we started seeing RAM prices start to go up before this announcement was even made, because there's been much more of a push. So you're seeing RAM now, like for example, earlier this year, I ended up building a new computer. I'm running one of the most common RAM configurations, right? Like if you just like, I've seen my RAM in so many examples and so many memes and so many images and references. I'm running like that typical like Corsair Vengeance, like RGB 64 gigabyte kit running at 6,000 speed. Yeah, I ended up paying, I had to actually look it up. Now, the lowest this RAM has ever cost from what I see for this kit, a 64 gigabyte kit, was $205. That's US dollars. I ended up paying $212 when I got mine. Now that same kit is over $900, brand new. Because people might be saying, hey, look, it's a RAM shortage. Now it's going to, change up. No, the way I'm looking at it, and even like the experts I've looked at and such, and kind of like, looked at for guidance there, no, it doesn't look like this is really going to be slowing down anytime soon. The only thing that would really slow this down is if this AI bubble ends up popping. I do believe that AI is here to stay. Look, the toothpaste is out of the tube. Even if you don't like AI, you are going to have to utilize it in some way. You are going to need to be somewhat familiar with it. The only thing I just caution people on is don't let it replace you, including your brain. Like don't turn off your brain for AI. That's really, I'm going to caution people. Anything that you can do, any skill sets that you have, if they can be improved using AI, if you can use it as a tool to help you out, great. But if you're going to use it as an absolute replacement on there, you're not just replacing yourself. You're not just taking a shortcut. I mean, you're also going to be replacing your brain. You're going to be shutting things down, because see, when you stop using your brain for certain things, it's not like an Ethernet cable, for example, where if you're just not uploading or downloading, you have more bandwidth. No. The brain is not a bandwidth-based pipeline. The brain is a muscle. I know it's not literally a muscle, but what I'm saying is it's a muscle as in if you don't use it, you lose it. And there's been studies about that as well, too. People who are heavily reliant on AI, their brain activity, you look it up in a scan, it's dark. There's not that much going on. Parts of their brain are literally shutting down just from not being used. So that's something that I can impart to people there. I don't know how much further I'm going to get on that one, at least. We'll see if I go on any further tangents there. But point being on this is that now we're even seeing with new devices that are going to be coming out. We're talking about laptops. We're talking about phones. We're talking about desktops. The configurations and the defaults are changing. It looks like for premium smartphones, for example, if you want like a pro version of a smartphone, the standard was 16 gigabytes of RAM. They're going back to 12 gigabytes. Looks like budget phones are going to be back. They're going to be running 4 gigabytes of RAM. Even we're seeing these, just this lower entry on there. We're seeing the way we've seen shrinkflation, for example, in the last like 4 or 5 years with seemingly every kind of food product, where you see that, you used to buy, let's say, some bag of some kind of condiment, right? And there used to be 16 ounces in there for $3. And now you might be paying $3 for 14 ounces. It doesn't sound like a huge deal on there, but it does make a difference to the company. And you're paying more for less. You're paying the same price for less. That's what's happening right there. We're now going to be seeing the same thing with technology overall. And it's depressing. It really is, because I really don't even think I will acknowledge I'm a bit black-pilled on this. I am a little bit of I have a bit of a doomer mindset on this here. But I certainly don't think I am trying to spread FUD. I'm kind of just like seeing this happen in real time, and I'm like, I think this is what's going to happen as we're seeing more of this. Essentially, my belief right now is that even when I'd ranted about this earlier this year, I had said how building a desktop is so prohibitively expensive for so many people. Back in 2016, for example, I had built my desktop and I said, you know what, I want to go balls to the wall. I want to build the best desktop I can. I'm not going to go like 100% all out, but it was top of the line, I'd say. I built like i7 6700K. It was liquid cooled. That was for the CPU, 32 gigabytes of DDR4 RAM, and a GTX 1080 Ti. All of that cost me just over $2,000. And that thing was a workhorse. Like, it was, that computer's name was Angel. Angel did a fantastic job doing everything that Angel needed to. Great computer right there. Now, and I would say that was like pretty top of the line. Now my computer, I am thankful for it. But the one that I built in April, I want to say it was April of this year, I ended up paying just over $3,000 for a, I would say, good computer. Not top of the line, but good computer. My CPU is definitely overkill, but like for what I do and such, it works great. I have a Ryzen 9950X in there. And for my GPU, I have 64 gigabytes of RAM, and then for the GPU, I'm running a RTX 5070. Just because I'm sorry, I didn't want to pay $2,000, $3,000, even $4,000 for a GPU. That was not going to be happening. And earlier this year, it was just more difficult to get a GPU. So even then, I had to wait for it, but I'm like, I'm not going to get a scalper one. I'm not going to get an old GPU. I want to get a brand new current generation GPU. I was thinking of getting the 5080, but I saw the prices and I'm like, hell no, a 5070 is going to be just fine. I don't even be gaming hard enough on my computer like that to justify a 5080. But for the rendering and such that I do, here for the channel, it works out fine enough. So even back then, though, I had said that just for the GPU alone, like a mid-range GPU, it would not even a high-end, but a mid-range GPU being $700, which is what I paid at the time, I was like, I don't fault anybody. If you want to do gaming, I don't fault a single person for choosing to go console. Because even, after all the price hikes, even with the PS5 and the Xbox Series going up in price, they would still be more affordable solutions if you're looking to game than gaming on a PC. Unless you're going to go with something like a Steam Deck, but even then, like the Steam Deck is not going to be the most powerful device there. So it is going to struggle with newer games, and you're going to have to, have some drawbacks on there. But really what I'm saying is like, even if you don't think you're impacted by this, you are going to be impacted by this. Newer devices are going to have less RAM, or if you want to get those same RAM capabilities, you're going to have to pay more. But if they're not building those devices with the amount of RAM that you want, there's not too much that you can really do unless you're going to open up the device and desolder the old RAM and solder in the new stuff by yourself. And then even then, you might have to do some hacks and some configurations to actually get your non-standard configuration of RAM to work on that device. You see what I mean? So it's certainly depressing. It is a depressing future that I'm seeing, and kind of getting back to that. The future that I'm seeing is really the title of this, like, you'll own nothing and like it. And I had talked with people about it, and I guess actually before I delve into it, I just want to caution people here. If you're kind of maybe looking for advice or a solution or something, even with this, I am being liberal about it. I'm not even being conservative with this estimate here, but I would say if there's any type of device that you have been wanting to upgrade, and especially any device that you've been needing to upgrade, the sooner you upgrade or replace, the better. And I would say probably the next 12 months, maybe even the next 11 months, would be the most optimal to do that. Or else things are just going to things are going to get more expensive, but all this tech is going to get even more expensive. So you have this TVs, for example, they also use RAM. Your TV's getting a little bit long in the tooth, or you've just been wanting a nicer picture in your living room, you might want to upgrade your TV. If your phone is starting to slow down a little bit more, you got like a 4 or 5 year old phone, you might want to get yourself a new phone. If you've been putting off that computer upgrade for a while, you might want to do that sooner rather than later. That's actually why I even built my computer at the top of the year. I was thinking, funny enough, we're at Q4 right here, but I was talking with one of my best friends, and my old computer, Angel, was already several years overdue for an upgrade. I was having some issues with it, right? Like, it was affecting my workflow, like those types of issues, like just functional issues right there. And one of my best friends, I was talking with him about it, and I was thinking, like, it was like March, April of this year, and I said, I'm thinking of doing this, but because like the GPU prices were the big issue there, and I said, it's just, I kind of want to do this. I've been long overdue for this here, but I'm also wondering how good it would be for me to wait until Black Friday to get everything on sale. And my friend brought up a very good point. He said, you could wait until Black Friday and there could be a sale. You could get a discount, but that's also not a guarantee based on the market right now. The simple answer is we don't know what's going to happen Black Friday. So the question is, if you do not upgrade now in like March or April and you choose to wait until November or December to upgrade and build a new computer, and you're priced out of building a new computer, are you okay being stuck with your old one? And I instantly said, nope, I am not. I pretty much had this same quandary 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, and each time I said, nope, I'll be okay. But I had really been pushing that thing to its limits, and I'm just like, no, if I wait until the end of the year and I'm priced out of building a new PC, I'm not okay staying with my old one. So that's why I end up building out this new one here. But that's what I'd recommend to people. If you can, start budgeting, start planning the next 11, 12 months. Those electronics you've been wanting or needing to replace or upgrade, you might want to start doing that. But hey, do what you want to with your money at the same time. I'm not going to tell you what to do. That's just my opinion on there. However, talking about getting back to the doom of it, of owning nothing and liking it, what I believe is going to be happening with the rise of AI, with the rise of all these data centers breaking ground and all this happening, yeah, it's kind of in a depressing way, especially when you look at, what's happening in the environment and around us and everything. It's pretty much like we saw this shit in 1997, you all. Like Final Fantasy VII, the planet's dying cloud, like the whole thing with Shinra and all that. Like we had this. We kind of had this in a way in one of the most prolific games ever made. And I'm just like, wow, now it's, it's starting to happen in real life here. I shouldn't be laughing at that. But no, it's just what my belief is that the goal here for all these companies is that there's going to be more and more of a reliance on AI. There's going to be more of a reliance on services. And even with all this AI stuff here, there is impressive things that AI can do. There's also bad stuff, a lot of bad stuff that AI can do. And there's a lot of work that needs to be done with AI. And all these investments, they're not really investing in what AI can do now. They're investing in what AI could possibly do in the future, which I don't think, just with the way I understand AI, I don't think that's a great approach there. Again, my opinion on that. I could be ruffling some feathers there, but that's just my opinion on it. But going back to this, sorry, I know I've gotten off it like 5 times now. I think the era of a few affordable local compute power is really coming to a rapid end. Not only earlier this year, computers were just so expensive and everything was expensive really, but like the last 4 or 5 years, like any type of PC parts and such have been expensive. But now the way it's leaning, especially we're seeing like, more data centers crop up, even more pushes towards AI. Everything around AI is getting expensive. It has to get fresh water from somewhere. All this land it has to get, especially electric bills as well too. Those get offset to just regular consumers as opposed to the actual companies who are running these data centers. Most of the time, that's what ends up happening there. Getting back to the actual like compute power though, people overall are just going to get priced out of having local compute power, having an actual desktop that's running Windows, and I mean, a lot of people might say, oh, that's a good thing because, you shouldn't be running Windows, but it's like, no, you know what I'm talking about though. Let's say even Linux or, Mac or whatever it is. It's just getting any of this local compute is going to become so expensive. And there are going to be people, I even saw one person kind of summed up saying that it feels like we're kind of going back to like the 90s, kind of like in a bad way, where this stuff is just going to be expensive, and the only people who are really going to be able to afford it and still pay into it are going to be the nerds who well, first of all, like rich people who, they can just drop that. But secondly, it's going to be the nerds who actually plan around it, where like having a computer, and I'm one of those people, having an actual desktop computer with local compute power is important enough to me that I believe, like, for the rest of my life, I'm just going to make sure I can budget out and make sure I have an actual desktop that I can work with. Not a Chromebook, not some thin client, not some other type of remote device. Getting into that, though, I think that's where the push is going to be. There's going to be more and more of a reliance on cloud services, on online services, on remote services, on, these AI services doing everything for you and doing all the processing in these data centers, whether it is going to be computing, whether it's going to be gaming, whether it's going to be productivity, whatever it is. And I believe the future that is probably going to be pushed is going to be, hey, instead of building yourself a $3,000 desktop, we can sell you a $200, even $300 thin client type machine. Or instead of getting a $1,200, a $1,500 phone, you can get yourself, a $300, $400 phone. And whatever you're using, whether it's a desktop, a laptop, a phone, the service is on, like, it's not going to have that much storage because you're going to have to rely on cloud storage. These services on there, any type of apps that you run will have just enough power they can run on a lower power device decently enough. But if they need any extra compute power, or even if it's just an app in general that just needs extra compute power, you're going to have to pay for an internet connection, your 5G connection, whatever it is. You might have to pay a little more because of data usage on there. And then you're essentially going to have to offload your compute power that you would do on your desktop, on your laptop, on your phone. That's going to be handled by whatever data center the server you're connected to is in. And all of this stuff here is going to cost. If you want to have local storage, or not local storage, but if you want your storage solutions, there's going to be cloud storage options that are available. You're going to have to pay for them if you want to have that access and back up everything on there. So then your data that you have is not really yours, it's sitting on a data center server somewhere. Same thing with any type of compute power, even gaming as well too. I know we've seen it with, I don't think GeForce Now is still a thing anymore. I thought I saw that discontinued, but like xCloud or anything else, as it becomes unaffordable to even really like create game systems, for example, and just like companies will be manufacturing game systems, but if they're just too expensive for people to purchase, then as opposed to having an Xbox like Series or a PlayStation 5 or whatever, we might all just have to have like the next Steam Link. If you don't know what the Steam Link is, it's this little tiny device. Maybe it's about the size of like a piece of bread or two together, like it's like the size of a sandwich. You just connect it to power, connect it to internet, get your account on there, and then from there, there's like a little tiny bit of like compute power, but for the most part, you're really just supposed to use it as a linking and remote device, except instead of remoting to your local desktop that is doing everything, you're going to be connecting to whatever service you do to play games remotely. Something like a Stadia, something like that, which is not ready for prime time at all. Like that's why Stadia died. It didn't really attach. But it will get to the point, if these are like the only options, or if they are the glaringly obvious options, this is what people are going to use. And most people are going to do that. I feel like that's the unfortunate thing. Most people will do that because the people who like follow this channel and all that, including like you all, the people listening, you all, and I say this lovingly, are not most people. Most people don't really want to mess around with their devices. Most people don't want to modify, jailbreak, unlock their devices. Most people don't want to continue to use and get the best out of old game systems and old devices when they can just get a new one. Why play on that old PS3 when there's the PS5 Pro? Why are you playing on that old Xbox 360 when we have the Xbox Series X? Why are you still using discs when you can just get the latest Series X and it doesn't even have a disc drive in there? You can just download everything digitally. It's so wonderful. Like that'll get into, my next topic here. Let's say that, right? And this is something that's made me a bit happy here. Actually, not a bit happy, a lot of bit happy, I'll say that. But the nice thing is, there needs to be more of a push for this, but more and more people are waking up to the idea, and I don't want to sound conspiratorial there, but they're waking up to the idea of not owning anything. Or I guess I should say people are waking up to the idea that the way we consume any of our media and purchase games and such doesn't seem to be quite right. Now, there are some people who seem to take it a whole other angle and viewpoint, right? And I've seen this with, it's funny, I've seen this with like indie musicians that I listen to, where there's some of them who even say, man, this whole streaming thing, like this streaming music, I'm not able to really make a living. I can't really make that much money. All these services like Spotify, they're paying me pennies for thousands of listens on here. Back in the 90s, back in like the early 2000s, like 20 years ago, they had it right. You end up making an album, and then you can buy that album, and if for every single sale of that physical CD, I end up getting a better profit of it. That was the right way to do it. As somebody who lived through that era, I would disagree on that, because I remember how people were complaining back then. Like, real quick, I'll get into this for like CD sales. This is also just how the industry was as well too. For a long time, and this is something I do feel passionate about, but for a long time, for people who said, like, and they exaggerated only to a degree, but they said, yeah, I'm not going to pay $15 or $20 for an album just to listen to one song. That's really what people did, because there were a lot of times, there were artists, there were bands, there were musicians who they would get signed to a label, and they had like one or two really good songs that took off, some good singles. So the label would say, great, we need you to crank out, you got one hit single, we need you to crank out 9 more songs. Just crank them out. That's it. So then this would happen. That's why if you listen to some old, and I'm not knocking old music. There's a lot of great old music. There's a lot of amazing, timeless, wonderful albums out there. But a lot of the mainstream stuff, you go back and listen to it. Like if you listen to some of those albums, if you're like, wow, there's only like 2 songs on here that are good and the other like 12 of them suck. Yeah, that was usually a push from the label. Because what they would do is they would say, okay, we need you to crank out, you have one good song, we need you to crank out 9 more songs, they don't even have to be good, boom, we're going to press it to a disc, a vinyl, a tape, this is beyond 8-track now, but we're going to press it there, we're going to release it, we'll sell the album for 15, maybe $20, and when it comes to it, most of that money does not go to the artist. Now, if you're a really big artist, like someone who's like at their prime back then, like a solo act like Eminem, for example, he might get maybe $3, maybe $4 per album sale, which I mean, sounds like a lot now, and it is a lot. That is a heck of a lot. But that's what I mean. Like a lot of bands as well too, just like if you have to split it and all that, the band, I'm not even saying per member, the band might get like $2 per album sale, and it's a 4-person band. Well, $2 divided, so you're making what, maybe 50, 75 cents per sale, like per person on those albums. So that's how it was back then, but people end up getting so frustrated because they said, I don't want to pay $15, $20 for albums when I only care about 1 or 2 songs. And that's when we saw, the whole advent of like music piracy, which had been already there, but Napster ended up completely flipping the game. And even though I'm not a huge Apple fan, right, I thought this was pretty ballsy. I will give some credit to Steve Jobs, rest in peace, but when he had introduced, the iPod and iTunes, because the big revolutionary thing was, for several years, it was just, you had companies who were struggling to sell, like all these labels are struggling to sell albums, because every single album, as soon as it was leaked out, as soon as one person had it, it would be pirated all over the place. So they were trying to race against the clock to not get these leaks out and kind of trying to curb that in a way. But then when iTunes ended up coming out and they did the revolutionary thing of not only selling music digitally, which had already been done, but their thing was, as opposed to buying an album, because they kind of cut through the fat, they said, look, we can't give you the music for free, but if you only care about one song, you don't have to pay $10 for this. You could just buy that single song for 99 cents, and then you can burn it to a CD, or you can put it on your iPod. And Steve Jobs, the reason why I was giving him credit on this was because he ended up going on stage, which just seems unheard of now in like the current day. But he went on stage and he said something along the lines of, we have to compete with pirates. And piracy is so popular because it's better than the options out here. Not only you can get any song you want to, you can get a single song, you can get a whole album, but you can get it for free. We can't compete with that. we can't compete with getting whatever songs you want to for free. So that's why we're kind of making our own lane here. And while it's not free, whatever song you want to, it's up on the storefront. We're going to make it easy for you, and each song is going to be 99 cents. We can't really give it out to you, but like, hey, you know what? Props to pirates. You all have a better service. Like, it was unbelievable that happened. And now, of course, then it ended up changing to, the whole advent of like music streaming. So like Spotify was coming about, and now we have all these other streaming services which just don't pay as much. But in the midst of that, like for consumers, it can be great. But then even then, consumers are getting annoyed where you're having all these services that are going up in price. And if you don't choose to upgrade your membership that might have been premium is now kind of like a half premium where you have to listen to some ads. You don't listen to as many ads as the free tier, but now all of a sudden you have to listen to ads with your music and you have to consume it that way. And even most, if not all of these services, they're really not profitable to the extent that you would think of. And if they are profitable, then you're kind of screwing over the artist, which is when other services such as Bandcamp, for example, Bandcamp has been incredibly pro-artist on there. I think they even have Bandcamp Fridays where, for example, because you could just, like me, myself, if I wanted to be a musician, I could just make a Bandcamp account. I could put my music on there. It's all available. You can listen to it. You can sample it. And then if you want to buy it, then if I put a price on there, because that's optional, I could put it out for free. But if I put a price on there, then you can go purchase it and you can get it in whatever format you want. You can get it in a super compressed format. You can get it in a completely lossless format. And then from there, it's DRM free. You can do what you want to. But even Bandcamp does something called Bandcamp Fridays, I want to say is what it is, where on Friday, and it's not every single Friday, but on specific Fridays, when they have this for that entire day, you can go on there and any of the artists that you pay for their music on, Bandcamp won't take a cut, is what I'm saying. Solutions like that are awesome, and I love them, but most people don't use them. Now, there are a lot of people, I'm sure, who might be listening to this who are saying like, oh no, that's great, I used it all the time. And again, I say this with love. The people who are listening to this, the people who follow the channel, I really love and appreciate you all, but we are not most people. We are lovingly the oddballs here. So that's why, kind of we're into the older game systems. We're into preservation. We are into these things. But what I'm seeing now with more and more generations, like the younger generations as they're coming up, they're looking at this like, hey, this doesn't seem right. Like, why is it that like, it's cool that all this music is available at, my fingertips, but it feels like there should be something more to it. Like, why can't I easily get this music physically? Even if I'm listening to it on streaming services, why can't I download it? Why can't I have a file like on my phone or on my computer or something that I can move around from place to place? Why can't I just put that on a USB drive and plug it into my car and listen to it that way? Why do I always have to be connected to this service? Same with movies, same with video games as well too. Video games a little bit later to it because, they have, the biggest one has really been Game Pass, which is really only on the Microsoft ecosystem side of house there. But even like Steam, for example, this is what ended up surprising me. I remember, well, when Steam first dropped, people hated it because it wasn't good at the beginning, right? And then they started doing the Steam sales, and I believe Gabe Newell, he famously said something, I'm paraphrasing it, but he said something along the lines of piracy is more of an access problem, because with Steam, if you make an easy-to-use storefront, if you make the games affordable, people are willing to pay for them. I know people, for example, where they pirate a lot of stuff. And like in this example, let's say they pirate new games, they pirate old games. But when there's a Steam sale, if there's a game they're interested in and it's like the super packed Game of the Year edition of a game and it's only like $5, even like the biggest pirates I know usually end up buying it because they're just like, dude, it's just right there. It was $5. I just signed into my Steam and it's like, it's there, it's updated, the content is there, it's fine. It's so much more convenient and it's easier. But I remember when Steam was really applauded for this, for all their sales. And then it just threw me off when like over the last few years, there's actually been a little bit of a push to be against Steam because I want to say Steam takes like a 30% pay cut of sales on there. But then there were people saying like years ago, like people said, oh yeah, that's fine. But now it's at the point people are like, no, 30% is way too much. It is way, 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 way too much. And I want to say Epic Store, like the Epic Game Store, I think they take like 10 or 12%. But then you have to be on the Epic Game Store, which just has less people overall on it compared to something like Steam. And a lot of people who are on the Epic Game Store are using it out of a necessity. For example, to play like Fortnite or something. I won't install the Epic Game Store. It kind of annoys me. I do like collect like the free games on there, but that's really about it. But we're seeing more of a push for people saying like, hey, this doesn't seem like this was right. Like, what were like the old things that people did? And now you're seeing kind of that legacy media starting to come back. There's people who like to make mixtapes. There's people who are burning CDs for the first time. One of the worst things I saw, but I love the effort behind it. I saw people who were like making their own mixtapes, like cassette tapes. They were making them, but they were sourcing the audio from YouTube. And I'm like, you're almost there. You're almost there. You did a lot of this right, but then like this one thing you got wrong. Just the source is wrong on here. But I've seen even people like messing around with old formats like mini disc, like making physical mini discs, making physical CDs, just doing things like that. Because even I'm as a millennial, I'm one of those people where it's like I grew up like we had VHS tapes, we had cassette tapes. There was a physical item that was associated with the media that you were consuming, and there was an idea of having a collection in some way. Even if it was a small collection, let's say under your TV you have like a stack of like 6 or 7 VHS tapes. That's a collection right there. Nothing wrong with that. But now more and more people are realizing, wow, I think there's something to consuming this content outside of just browsing icons on a screen, outside of scrolling a list on my phone, outside of looking things up like on my desktop here. There has to be something else with it. And we're seeing more of that there, and I do love to see that, and I do love that ownership. And I think another big push for it as well is just the annoyance with all this content being segmented all over the place. I think this is the last point I'll make on this here, but this has been overplayed so much. How Netflix was really kind of the savior for a while of piracy for video, like for movie and TV show content, because for a long time, even the people who were like into physical media and all that, they were getting Netflix, including myself. And it was a lot of people who said, you know what, I'll pay $8 for the Netflix subscription and I'll just watch everything on there, and whatever's not on there, usually it was like Game of Thrones, I'll just pirate whatever's not on there, because that's what it was for a while. It was like Netflix had everything except for like Game of Thrones. So Game of Thrones, and for a while too, like now you can like just subscribe to Max, whatever it is. I think it went back to HBO Max. It went from like HBO Max to Max, now it's HBO Max again. Really stupid. Anyways, for a while you couldn't do the HBO streaming service without having HBO. Like now you can actually subscribe to it. But from what I remember, a horrible way of doing it, right? In order to access the HBO streaming service, you had to pay for HBO. And in order to pay for HBO, you had to have a cable service. So it was kind of this like, this whole circle there, this whole circle around heaven, where it's just like, even if you're a person where like, look, I don't want to watch cable at all, but I want to stream this legitimately. I just want to get onto the HBO app or the HBO site and load up my HBO content there. No, you have to pay for a cable or satellite subscription. From there, you have to add HBO to it. And then from there, you can then stream it. I'm really happy that model died off, because they were being a little greedy with that one right there, where they wanted you to have everything. But no, that's not how it is, where there's people who've been cord cutters for a very long time. So yeah, that's just how it goes. I'm happy to see at least more of an advent on there of having more physical ownership and having more offline ownership. But even with that as well too, hey, make sure you have your drives handy. Maybe build up a server that you can just put your media on, and take care of your physical media as well too. If you want to have your physical media, that's totally fine. Just make sure it's backed up somewhere safe, so you always have the backup available. All right, so something a little more positive here. You know what? Let's get into some video games, right? Sorry to go mostly doom on this episode here, especially so close to the holidays, but I did want to talk about, some of the games that I'm playing here. So I just ended up pulling out my Switch 2 here. I kind of paused on it. I'm kind of paused on Astral Chain, just because even though I love that game, it's a type of game I really have to be like into and like focused on to really play and enjoy it. But one of the games I end up finishing again for the first time in several years, I played this only one time years ago, and I decided to play it again here, was A Short Hike. If you haven't played it before, you end up playing a bird who, I think I just like bird games. I'm not sure what it is, but you end up playing a bird who is going to this island essentially, and your goal is you need to hike up this mountain to get up to the peak of this mountain, and then once you get up to the peak, the game ends. There's other stuff that you can do there though, which is cool. There's a lot of interactions you can have. There's collectibles, there's exploration. So if you just want to rush through this game and just get to the top of the mountain, you can certainly do that. If you really want to take your time with it and explore, you can get lost in there for a few hours. It's a cute game. It's really positive. It's nice. It's one of those games too that seems like everybody enjoys and everybody can recommend, whether you're a pretty seasoned gamer or whether you are someone where you're looking for a game for your significant other to play who's not really into games. It seems like this title always comes up. And even on that latter portion right there, I've talked to people where they've said like, yeah, I'm getting my girlfriend like a computer, or I got her set up, or I'm getting her like a Switch set up, and I was looking for like some games, and I don't know if you'd recommend Annie. And like when I had this conversation with someone, I said, have you heard of A Short Hike? And the guy was like, yes, she's playing that. She loves that game. Do you know any other games like that? So we had a little bit of a talk there. I ended up also finally picking up and trying, because it was like $10 or so. My brother and we ended up rolling into Walmart at one point, and I saw this on sale for $10. I ended up getting Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown on Switch. And this game ended up surprising me. I'm pretty close to the beginning, but it is good so far. I've been enjoying it. It's been a fun game overall. And then as for like other games I've been playing, I did end up picking Silent Hill 2, like picking up the Silent Hill 2 remake, although I do need to actually play it, admittedly, so maybe it doesn't count. I have the disc, I opened it up, I installed it on my PS5, but I'm waiting to have some actual downtime here, hopefully during like, a break time and such. I'm hoping to have some downtime to actually like delve into it. But again, that's also not really a game I can like casually play. I have to be in a mood where I want to be unsettled, I want to be a little bit disturbed, and I need to focus. I can't just like casually play the Silent Hill games like some people can. And that's just how it goes for me, at least. But no, one of the games that I ended up playing recently that I had a lot of fun with was Dispatch. Now, my youngest brother was really into this game. And it was funny because he reached out to me about it, and he was like, dude, you should look into this game, Dispatch. We were kind of like trading off games. Like, he told me about Dispatch, he put me onto it, I put him onto Expedition 33. And he is still borrowing my copy right now. He's a good amount of the way in. He just needs to finish up the last bit of the game. But he's currently enjoying it, like I guess when he can or when he's jumping to it. He's kind of a little sporadic with it is what I'm saying. But he ended up introducing me to Dispatch. I'd like heard the name of the game once or twice, but he was telling me just to look it up because of the voice talent behind it, where I want to say, let me get this guy's let me get this guy's name right. Okay, I did get it right. So the main character in there is voiced by Aaron Paul of Breaking Bad fame, he's done so many other things as well too, but that's where I mainly know him from, where I got acquainted with him from. So he ends up voicing the main character in there. I know Alana Pierce is in there, Moist Critical is in there. I want to say Jacksepticeye as well too. But the thing that ended up changing my mind on it was, it's not like I was like writing it off, right? But when I looked it up, he asked me to look up a trailer. I did. It's from, it even says here in the trailer, it says it's not from all of them, but it's from some of the people who worked on several of the Telltale games. And I got really excited seeing that. I was like, wait, what? So, because I know like Telltale games, they end up folding, unfortunately. To my recollection, I believe they did. or like there was a Mass Exodus years ago. But point is, it just made me happy to see that was ongoing. So they ended up making this game here. It's 8 chapters, so it's episodic. It's very similar to their other games that they had worked on prior. And even those games, I was kind of trying to get my brother onto because he like really likes Dispatch. So I told him like, dude, if you like these types of games, you need to go back and play The Walking Dead Season 1. Like that was game of the year. That is like this genre of game that is like quintessential. You need to play that. If you don't want to go into all the seasons, The Wolf Among Us, I absolutely loved that one. Tales from the Borderlands, I loved that one as well too. So there's some great games from there that you can play. And then even him and I, we have like the Steam family sharing going on. So I was like, dude, I'm pretty sure I have these on Steam. You can just go through and play them because that's how I played Dispatch for him. He ended up picking it up. He's played through the game like 3 times and he was like following all the chapters they were coming out, but it's 8 chapters. So even if you're sitting there thinking, I want to wait until the game has been completed overall, no, I don't know if there's going to be more of Dispatch, but at least the current iteration of it is complete. It was funny though, because we made a whole thing of it. Like when I was hanging out with him, he was saying like, hey man, you want to try Dispatch? Dude, you should definitely try Dispatch. You need to try Dispatch. So I played it on my Steam Deck. I ended up hooking it up to the TV, and then I was playing it and he was watching. And he had like some commentary here and there, but it was funny because there were a few comments he made. He was really surprised at how I was detecting some things and some decisions I was making and such, and kind of like how I played through some stuff. And I was just kind of like, dude, I'm older than you. I have more life experience than you. So like my brain is going to work a little differently. That's how I was able to kind of see this stuff. That's how I picked this. That's how I was able to pick this up right here. The other thing as well too was that he really wanted to see which choices I was making in the game, which a lot of them surprised him. Now, one thing that did make me feel good, which at the end I ended up it gives you a ranking, or not a ranking, but it ends up giving you a bit of a summary as to how you are. And for me, when I play these types of games, I like to get lost in them, and I like to put myself in the shoes of the character. I very much play them like, hey, if I was playing through this game, or not playing through it, but if I was in this situation, if I was in this circumstance, what would I do? And that's typically how I play. And the way I end up reviewing my play style, it said something along the lines of, I think it did call me a real hero. I don't know if that was the right terminology, but it essentially said that I always end up doing the right thing at the right time, which was definitely a nice little feel-good type thing. So yeah, we got to like compare our paths and all that stuff, and that was fun. But yeah, overall, you know, in a way, my brother got to learn a lot more about me just by seeing it all there. We were typically playing 2 episodes a night, and it was funny because it was like one night we ended up skipping, but we were like talking, you know, like when we're like trying to make our plans and all that stuff. He's just like, hey, like we're talking together, and it's like, hey, are you gonna be we're gonna do Dispatch? Okay, yep, all right, so what time are we doing Dispatch? All right, we're doing it at this time. Okay, awesome. So yeah, we're gonna knock out Dispatch. Oh man, it's getting good. Yep, we just end up finishing episodes 3 and 4. We got episodes 5 and 6 that we got to play through. Yep, we're playing it tonight. Oh no, okay, not tonight. We gotta go. So we were just like kind of hyping each other up on that, and that was fun overall. Let me see if there was another. I know there's been games I finished, but let me see what the other game I ended up playing was, because I feel like there was one that I had forgotten. I don't know if I talked about this one. I guess I'll talk about it here. But Harvey Birdman Attorney at Law, I ended up randomly playing this on the PSP. It's a game that I've had for years, and I think even when I bought it, I believe the shop I bought it from, even they were surprised. Like, they were just like, whoa, wait, there was a Harvey Birdman game on PSP? And I'm like, yes, there was. But I never played it until this year. And even though I'm not like a huge Harvey Birdman fan, it was one of those shows that I did watch. I have at least watched the first season. It was years ago. But as someone who's grown up on Adult Swim, I did watch it. I did enjoy it for what it was. And I'll say this, the game was absolutely hilarious. It's pretty much a Phoenix Wright clone, which I use clone lovingly, because it's developed by Capcom, so it's made by the same company that end up making the Phoenix Wright games. But because of that, there's Capcom-specific references in the game. There's like little unlocks and little scenes that you could get, and I'm not going to spoil it any further, but I would recommend playing through it with that. It played just fine on the PSP. It was funny because when I had like looked into it a little bit, the level of parity between the PS2 and PSP versions is identical, really. The only difference is even like the issues that they have are the same. So it's a really good port. The only difference is the resolution. So I'll tell people, like I'm telling you all, if you're interested in playing this game, if you want to play it on the go, play the PSP version. If you want to play it on a screen, play the PS2 version. There's not really a reason to play the PSP version on a big screen because there's just going to be, less resolution there. But this game was fun. I just randomly picked it up. I started playing it. I was playing it on my PSP Go, and for several nights, I was playing it right before bed. And there was 1 or 2 nights, like I was falling asleep playing this game just because I was tired. But like I would fall asleep playing this game, or like get close to falling asleep. But then I ended up having dreams about these Harvey Birdman sequences as well. So it put me into a bit of a better mood while I was actively playing it. So that was a fun thing. But yeah, something I can recommend if that's kind of up your alley right there. Either way, that is about it for this episode here of Mario's Minute. Hopefully you all enjoyed listening. Hopefully you all got to maybe be a little bit entertained at the doom and gloom here, and maybe have your own opinions you want to share. I'm not sure. Typically at the end of these episodes here, I do like to pick a keyword or a key phrase. And if you use this keyword or key phrase in a comment on the video upload, I'll know that you made it to the end. Typically, I like to pick up something off my desk here. So, I do have this, because we've been talking about all this tech stuff, AI and everything. Let's go with, there is something positive to just writing down and like journaling or whatever, or just writing things down with like a pen and paper. But let's use the word paper. When was the last time you printed a piece of paper? Are you one of those people where you don't really buy printer paper that often because you don't print that often? So therefore, then there's times where you have to print something and then you can't print because your printer notification is telling you that you need to put more paper in the tray, and then you go and you look and you don't have any new printer paper. So then you're kind of just trying to figure out what to do, whether you should go out right now and buy more printer paper, if it's feasible to do that, if you can even find a shop, if you really want to overpay, if you have to actually print this, if maybe you can go to another place and print out something. Not talking from experience at all. Not at all. No, not at all. But with that example, let's just leave it at that. If you use the word paper in a comment on the video upload, I'll know that you made it to the end of this episode. If you made it to the very end here, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Really, beyond words, I really appreciate it here. I hope you all have some awesome holidays ahead. I hope you all celebrate real well. I hope you all are safe. Happy New Year to anybody who's going to be listening to this here. Hope you all have a great New Year finishing up 2025, a safe New Year going into 2026, and I hope for the safety, because I hope to hear and see more people here as well too. If just be safe is what I'm saying, right? I don't want to get like super sentimental here, but let's just like all try to stay safe, all right? So if you can do that, wonderful. Either way, if you enjoyed this episode, a like would absolutely be appreciated. If you didn't like it, a dislike is fine as well too. But as I always say, this is Mr. Mario, signing off. Thank you all for listening and watching, everyone. And until next year.